Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, all depending on what time you are listening to this message. However, this morning, I just want to share my thoughts. So, this is my out loud diaries. As I have been reading and studying the book of Judges and specifically about Samson, God has showed me some things and have spoken some things to me because I kept asking him, like, why do I have this need to study Samson? Well, the first thing that jumped out to me was it's God's business. And that came to me as I continued to ponder on Samson's father, Moniah, not understanding and recognizing that he was speaking to an angel. And I realized that God had blocked his vision and understanding of even knowing that he was speaking to an angel. And as I begin to understand that, and a reference to that, I think, is the book of Luke 9, because the disciples was Jesus when he was, I think he had went to the cave to pray. And the spirit of Elijah, I believe, came, and then they had, I think they were ready to honor Elijah or something. And then, God had, took the angels away. Um, and I think what it said afterwards is that they didn't remember something. I can't fully remember it right now, but, I pondered over all of that. And that's when it came to my mind that it's God's business. So God had a particular reason why he was coming into Moniah and his wife's life, and that was to give them, a child, in a situation where it was just impossible because the wife was barren. And here comes Samson, who has been chosen and appointed by God. And, him having his glory and his strength and his hair, and then going after these, women who were very deceitful to him. Well, I've been studying it, and really diving deeper, into each verse, the history of the culture of, where they were, and Zariah, and what's the other place? I can't think of it right now, but just the culture of the places where he was. And then I was up this morning, once again, reading and studying Samson. And as I closed the Bible, I was just like, God, this just makes no sense to me in one point, because I think about it, it's like, God, you appointed him, you anointed him, you went to his parents, for to use them to bring a child through, and you anointed him. And truly, I believe because God is God, he could have stopped him from seeing, these women as, being the target, for him, and really filling him with the wisdom and knowledge and understanding so that he would go his way. Because if you go back, his parents even tried to persuade him to not to get that first woman. And it was like, marry a woman from here, it would be better. And he still didn't do that. And each woman for real, deceived him because, they had other people that were coming up and they wanted to know, how did he get his strength? Well, and it says too, the book of 1 Samuel 15, like, it's better to be obedient than any sacrifice. So I had in my spirit this morning to go and listen to this one guy on YouTube. So I'm just like, oh, I really didn't want to do it, but I'm like, okay, let me go and listen to him for whatever reason that God wants me to hear what he has to say. So I listened to him, and then I shut my phone down because I know I needed my quiet time. So, and I wanted to be obedient with, what I was hearing. So I listened to the guy. And as I shut it down in my quiet time, what came to me, the second thing about the story of Samson was the story is to show all who come behind Samson, which is us now, those who are, followers of Jesus Christ. It is to show us what can happen because of the glory of God on our life, the jealousy, the deceitfulness from close friends and family, and also to never take it for granted the glory that God has upon our life. And I said, I know at this point I needed to share just the two things that God has shown me and spoken to me. One, it's God's business. All of us who have been appointed by Him, who have been called uh, before we were even in our parents' womb, it's His business of what He does in our life. And there's some things that will happen because He needs it to happen. So a lot of the bad and the wrong that goes on, it is not the enemy, but God will use him because He needs this situation to go forward. If you really study it, God is the orchestrator of this life. He created Satan, and He also created you. But you have a choice who you will follow, but He still orchestrates things. This is who He is. He is a orchestrator. He is a planner. He is a business person. So in spite of your feelings, the plan that He has is going to go forward. So even what I'm saying now as I'm talking is that when I said the plan, he's a businessman, the plan will go forward. Yes, He appointed Samson. And Samson's hair was then cut off and his glory was gone. He realized that God had, abandoned him, right? But then God did come back, and give him his strength because Samson asked for it, or whatever. He gave it to him, and he said at that time, he killed more people, in his death than he did as he was living, so that showed that God didn't abandon him, but also too, his glory for real wasn't, really, uh, well, I can't say it wasn't taken because it was taken, but it was God's business. Let me stop my spirit. Is God's business. So let me stay focused on what I was saying. That a lot of things that happen in your life that you look at as bad is not the enemy. Give God the glory because there are some things that need to transpire and need to happen in order for God to get you in the place where He needs you or where He wants you. But don't take the glory that He has upon your life for granted. The story of Samson is to continue to show us, what could happen, how, the glory upon our lives makes people, angry and mad and bring out so much hate that people want to try to take away what God has given you. And to tell you the truth, when Jesus came, it's the same thing that happened to Jesus. And like I share with you that the Bible confirms itself. So Jesus also went through the same thing. People hating him, wanting to come up, against him, and try to say, well, who is he? Who, what kind of teacher is he? And I'm quite sure, in that time they probably like, and how old is he? Like, isn't he, Mary's child? Like, they talking about he the Messiah. All types of things, came up against Jesus. But we first seen it in the Old Testament. And this is what God showed me in the life of Samson. The glory upon him. And even the first woman that Samson just knew was for him. He had asked for this woman. Some people came up to her to, try to get her to go against him. And she just so freely just did it. But when I read a little further and I just think about truly the move, that God made, because I believe it was when Samson, it was something about that when Samson had, I think the wrong move that Samson may have made was when he took the honey out of the carcass of the, what was that, I think it was a lion. Yeah, when he took the honey, and that was, and he gave it to his father. That was a defilement, and I want to say, like, when he did that, he changed the trajectory of, you know, what God could have done through him, but he done something that was very, you know, defiling in God's eyes, because to take the honey out of this dead animal and then give it to your parents, and you didn't tell your father where you got it from, that's deceit. That was deceitful. So he opened up the doors for deceit. And this is how I see it in my eyes. And, however God speaks to you, then you go with what God is speaking to you. But what he's showing me, and as the more and more I contemplate on it, is Samson opened up the door for deceit when he deceived his father by giving him that honey out of that dead carcass. And we can go back, you know, further some chapters, and what God tells the Israelites, of not to eat, and not to touch, dead animals, that has been dead, or you can defile yourself in a whole camp. So if you go back and you learn some of the history, you'll know why this was really a terrible thing, and for real, how as it's coming to me now, how he opened up the door for deceit, because he first started it. He deceived his father with giving him something very, defiling. That was a dead animal, an animal that you killed like a day or so ago, and you went back and it was honey there, and then you ate the honey from out of the dead carcass. It could have been seen as a good thing, and this is something else that's coming to my mind as I'm speaking. It could have been seen as a good thing, but if we know the God that we serve, he's not going to give us something dead, and there's something alive. It's almost like it was a tricky thing. But this is how the enemy play on us, because the enemy can be right in front of our face and we don't even recognize it, because like it says, what Satan is, he will imitate light, right? So he can come and imitate, things, but if you are not truly walking in the power of the Holy Spirit and allowing God to work in you, you can miss it. You can miss it. And then guess what? Yeah, and you can lose some things in your life, because we're not recognizing, the move of God. And then we're not understanding who our God is, to know that this is something that we should not do. So yes, I didn't see this before, but as I'm talking, I see it now. Like, he opened up the door for that deceit by him first being deceiving his father with giving his father that honey from out of that carcass, and never told his father. So as the second thing that God showed me this morning, the story is to show all who come behind him and who has come behind Samson, of what can happen because of the glory of God on our life, the jealousy, the deceitfulness, but yet never take it for granted, the glory that God has upon us. Don't take it for granted, because there are so many people who want that glory, who want that crown. But when God chooses you for real, they can try to, stop it, but guess what? It ain't like it's going to go to them. Because when you look at it, his enemy Samson, they said, oh yeah, they was rejoicing. Yeah, our God, they said, our God, what is called dragon or something like that, gave us Samson. No, their God didn't give them Samson. It was because God took his glory away from Samson, which is the reason why they was able to get to him. And see, even the deceit in the enemy's mind, thinking that God, their small g, gave them Samson. Your God didn't do anything. It was because the master, the creator, the almighty Alpha and Omega, took his glory away from Samson. Okay, and as you could think about it, for a time, because when Samson asked for it back, he gave it to him. So that also shows that there's nothing that God will not do for us. And what the enemy think he has taken, Guess what? Satan can't take anything from God. He can try to stop what God is doing. But when we know who we are and open up our mouths to say, God, look, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize. But will you please restore me? He'll hear you. He'll answer you and restore you. So I hope that this blesses someone. And once again, God has said two things to me. It's God's business relating to Samson's story and also those who are called to the kingdom of heaven. And the story is to show all who come behind Samson what can happen because of the glory of God on our lives. God bless you.